Hey, yo, what's up, guys? It's Yeti here. Welcome back to another video. So today we're going to be talking about key bindings, macros, and movement in World of Warcraft. While I am on the War Within retail client, this applies to every single version of the game because they have the same fundamentals of targeting and interrupting. However, I don't know if Classic Era has access to focus, but either way, all of these should apply to pretty much everybody who's playing World of Warcraft as of right now. So I would first like to talk about movement specifically, because there is a very common error going on with a lot of players that they, when they're starting to play World of Warcraft, their movement looks like this. So we're going to lift our mouse, we're going to only move it forward, and we're going to be turning left and right with the default turn keys. This is really, really bad if you're actually trying to play the game, because, you're often going to be casting, you're often going to be using your mouse for targeting in World of Warcraft, while, you're going to have to move purely with your keyboard. And almost every single player is going to, at least in the high end, is going to be moving. Again, I'm holding my mouse in the air. I'm using strafe keys. I think by default, these are bound on Q and E. However, Q and E are very important keys for, spells that we'll be talking about. This spell keybinds we'll be talking about later. However, using normal WASD movement with strafing movements is just much better, and it's going to feel exactly like an FPS game. And then a lot of people are asking me, okay, Yeti, so I'm strafing with A and D, I'm moving forward with W and backwards with S. How do I turn? Well, you're holding down your right mouse click and you actually aim literally like you were playing an FPS game. And if you hold down your left mouse key, you can actually just look around. This is going to be useful in a lot of scenarios as well. But realistically speaking, you are holding down your right mouse button and you are using your keyboard to move around. This is like the basic way of moving in World of Warcraft. If you want to, avoid getting hit in the back, this is very important for tanks. And, if you're trying to dodge frontals without losing line of sight of the target, hunters are, for example, only be able to shoot up front to the sides. Same with pretty much any caster that is sending, instance. If I was running this way, I cannot, shoot those dummies. Let me show you here. There's those dummies. And if I'm running this way, I cannot ice lance them. They have to be in front of me. So, I'm able to move pretty much almost run exactly away from them because I'm strafing and I'm just, pressing the instant like that. But if I was using normal keyboard turn, this would be impossible actually. Like, how would you, it's not, you're not able to move this way at all, right? So combining your strafing keys with your mouse right click is going to be the perfect way to, move as smoothly as possible in World of Warcraft. Now, how do you find these keybinds? They are actually in your, you escape, you go into these settings and you have the keybind menu right here. And what you are looking for is strafe left and strafe right. So you can bind these to A and D while keeping W and S to go forward and move backwards. That would be my recommended route. Some people even unbind S for a specific spell, but I do think that there are very niche scenarios where walking backwards is useful, especially if you're playing a tank. It might be very, very useful. Now, another key I would recommend you guys to check out is auto run. This is, again, a very niche keybind, but it might be useful in certain scenarios in Open World or Mythic Plus, where you want to toggle this to, open up your menu or something like that, and it will save you some time. And if you are a new player, I think this is originally bound to toggle numpad, but I just bound it to one of the keys here on the side that I use. And I actually do press this quite often. All right, so in the second part of this video, I want to talk about focus target and macros. I kind of want to put these together because a lot of focus macros can interact with, focus and how you set focus and things like that. So right off the start, I want to explain what focus target is. So as you can see, this is my target. When I press my focus target keybind, it sets it to focus target. And then, if you're using something like Plater, it's going to have that focus target highlight on it. And, default frames do this decently as well, at least by having your focus be a smaller version of the frame to the side. And, of course, focus is also going to have a cast bar. For example, if we, focus this player right here. We can see his cast bar when he is casting as well. And this is very useful in Mythic Plus scenarios when you set caster mob to focus and you say, oh, I have this mob. This is the one I'm going to kick. And then you can target whoever you want, and you can use certain macros to kick the specific target that you set as your focus. Before we get into this though, I want to show you guys how to actually set your specific target as your focus target. This is an option that a lot of my friends use, and I can understand why, but this is not my preferred option. However, I'm still going to include it because if you are just starting World of Warcraft, this might be the better way. Do /M in your chat, open your macros menu. You will create a new macro. You can call it whatever you want. You can give it whatever picture or image you want. So for me, we're going to pick this random one here. And we'll call it set focus. And the text to set your focus on Mouseover will be written in the description of the video. So this is going to do focus on your Mouseover if it exists and if it's not a dead target. Otherwise, it's going to empty brackets mean just default targeting. So let's try this out. So if I put this onto, let's say, instead of my icy veins, and if we let's clear our focus. So if we're mouse overing the cleave target dummy, and if we press this macro, it's going to set it as our focus. Very nice. And also, if we target it, it should also work. There we go. So now it set my current target as the focus. This is very nice, very smooth macro that's going to set whatever you are, it takes priority. Whatever you're mouse overing takes priority. And if there's no mouse over, it's going to do your target, right? So let me just explain the priority system to you as well. I'm going to be targeting this dummy, and I'm going to be mouse overing the one with less HP. And when I use the macro, it sets the one with less HP because that is the priority. What is more on the left of the text of the macro, the sooner obviously takes priority over what is later there. And now the second way of setting your macro is how I do it. You are once again gonna navigate to your key binding menu, go under targeting, and scroll all the way down to focus target. And I use mouse button for it. And the way this one works is when you have a specific target selected, I press my mouse button and it sets it there. So I do not use set focus with a mouse over. I instead just target and then, click my mouse button to set that as my focus target. I prefer it that way. Now, why did I show you how macros work? Why would that be important in any way, shape, or form? So this is where the second macro comes into play, and it's called focus kick. The focus kick macro is going to, /cast at focus if it exists, otherwise a normal cast counterspell. So if you're in a Mythic Plus scenario and you know which monster you have to interrupt, for example, in Necrotic Wake, there are monsters that do fear, and you decide, okay, I will be interrupting the one with skull. You target the one with the skull, you set it as focus macro, and then you can just, you can hit the dummy right here. There's no, you can do whatever you want. The target starts casting and bam, you press the focus interrupt macro and it's going to kick the target you have set as your focus. So it does not matter which one you're targeting, as long as you set the focus to the right target, you can keep doing optimal damage, you can keep cleaving off of the one with more HP, you can keep prioing the specific target that your tank wants to kill, but you're still going to be kicking the target that you were assigned to. And this is really important in team play, and it's going to make your life a lot easier. And this kind of macro is, almost required for everybody who wants to do Mythic Plus. There are two more macros that I want to show you guys. The first one is a very basic @cursor cast. So you're going to do #show tooltip. By the way, I didn't talk about this yet, but this means that your macro is going to be using the icon of your spell. And, if you mouse over the macro, it's going to look exactly like you had the normal spellbound. This is the quality of life improvement for every single macro. So we have #show tooltip /cast @cursor blizzard. So this is a very normal @cursor cast for anything that needs to be put on the ground. The reason we do this is because I'm already going to be, using my mouse cursor right here. I'm going to cast blizzard and it's going to just cast it there without needing the confirmation of, mouse button 1 to click and then start casting. It's just natural if you come from League of Legends background. I think this is called quick cast. It's the exact same thing. Now, another macro that we also have to mention here is going to be the @Mouseover cast. This is very, very similar, but this one is used for spells which are targeted at players, not at the ground. So again, we start with #show tooltip to make the macro act like a normal spell. /cast @Mouseover exists. bracket for normal cast Arcane Intellect. This can be used for both damaging and healing spells. I use it for Arcane Intellect because sometimes in the world I want to buff somebody. All right, so let's take this person here. He does not have Arcane Intellect. And we're going to use this. I have it bound on Control Q. I have it hidden because it's a buff. We're going to mouse over him. We're going to cast the spell onto him. We saw the icon pop up and he now has the buff. This can be done with all kinds of healing spells, damaging spells, but yeah, mostly I use it for buffs on classes that are not healers. And this is actually the macro I use on every single healing spell when I'm playing a healer myself, because I prefer this over click, over any other way of targeting. I also don't like the Blizzard's built-in options for Mouseover. I actually prefer this macro for every single spell. It makes playing by far the smoothest. And the last part, when it comes to macros, I want to show you guys how you can keybind your trinket or even a combat potion inside one of your cooldown abilities. So for example, I am a Frost Mage and I play with Icy Veins. And I can just make a macro with, again, show tooltip Icy Veins and then cast Icy Veins right here. Why do I already put Icy Veins here? Is because you want this icon to only show Icy Veins, nothing that is in the macro, before or after Icy Veins. Show tooltip will always pick up the first thing you're mentioning, but macros, you want to usually use them before the spells, because I think in Blizzard, the way it works, if you have a trinket using, you being used first and then a big cooldown, it's going to actually, increase the damage or the scaling of that specific cooldown, right? So for example, here, if I wanted to use my Spy Masters at the same time I, used Icy Veins, I would also do /use. And there's a cheat sheet of what your specific slots in your World of Warcraft character's equipment are. So here I would use 13 because that is the number of Spy Master's trinket. And then we would obviously also, for example, want to use our combat potion. So you would do /use, and you can also just shift click like that, tempered potion. So now when I press the Icy Veins macro, if we use it right here, it used tempered potion. It actually popped Spy Masters, but I don't think there's anything popping up because, oh, there we go. It actually is, my bad. So Spy Master, tempered potion, and we also obviously have Icy Veins active all in one key. So we're using multiple functions inside one key and kind of, freeing up and giving ourselves more freedom that way. All right, now for the difficult part. My idea on how to bind all of the spells of a specific class onto your action bars. What kind of, tips you can pick up from me and so on and so forth. So obviously, before we start, I just want to mention that you can bind these spells inside your game. You can do that either in the Keybind menu, or some add-ons like Dominoes will also allow you to enter key binding mode and mouse over each specific, icon on your action bar and give it an appropriate key that will, trigger that ability. That being said, I decided to count the total amount of icons in the spell book of two of my characters. One of them was my Frost Mage, and the other one was my Protection Warrior. I believe both of these were in Mythic Plus talents at the time. So, of course, a lot of this will vary, what level you are, what hero talents you're using, things of that sort. So it's always nice to have a little bit more keybinds available to yourself. But, 34 was the number I counted on both of these characters. This is also including spells which you do not need to keybind. For example, Protection Warrior does not need to keybind Rend. You do not need to keybind Slam. And you do not need to keybind Whirlwind because you have different spells that do the same thing. They just kept those in the book because that's how World of Warcraft works. For Mage, there are obviously spells like portals, teleports, and I think also like Arcane Intellect can be on. You can even click buffs if I'm honest. But I think that it's nice to have everything bound. So the way I approach this is by making a sheet of all the spells of all the keybinds. Actually, I'll keep it like this that I use. So as you can see, I have 17 different unique keys. So I said numbers 1, 2, 3 to 4 and 5. Then I have E, Q, R, T, F, G, X, C, V, and then the cedilla, tilde, whatever we call that key. And I also have mouse button 4 and 5. So my mouse button 4 and 5 are a little bit awkward. Just to give you a heads up, these cannot be used as mouse over if you're playing a healer at all. So this is mostly usable for DPS. I already told you I use one of these for focus, so I actually don't even use them for keybinds. And I think I use mouse button 4 for, I forgot what, but I use it for something. That being said, the total amount of keybinds is 17. With shift modifiers and control modifiers, you have a total of 47 like unique keybinds you can use. And I already told you earlier, there's like 34 spells in the spell book. A total amount of keybinds you need is probably roughly around 30, and I have 47 available keybinds. Of course, I use trinkets on top of that. On some keys, I use health stones, health pot, combat pot, and things like that. You know, obviously mount. I also use repair mount on Control C. So, you know, just to give you an idea of how many you can have. If this is too awkward for you, there are also obviously MMO mice out there. I think the Razor Naga used to be one of the most popular mice that has a lot of keys on it that can help you, you know, and then obviously those can add like a few more, and you can also use modifiers on these, by the way. You can actually just be like, okay, I'll also use modifiers on these, and then, you know, there we go, we are at 51 keybinds available, and then you just, you know, put spells however you want. Of course, something you are spamming a lot should be on keys 1, 2, 3, and 4. For me personally, those are the most comfortable keys. My keys Q and R are often used for spenders, because those are like I can slam them while I'm doing the rotation. Like for example, on my Protection Warrior, I've ignored pain on R, and I slam that R key. Literally, it doesn't matter what I'm doing. I can be running using, you know, Thunderclap, which is my number 2 key. Shield Slam is number 1 key, and then I'm ignore painting on my R perma. This is not a video where I'm going to be telling you what, you know, keybinds you should have where, and you should copy paste them, because that is just not true, right? I will highly recommend you that something like F can be either a movement key or an interrupt key. You know, always keep movement and interrupt keys on very comfortable keybinds. Also, I, for example, almost always use immunity on classes on Shift 2. That is something I got really used to. It's, again, very, very comfortable for me to press Shift. So that's kind of how I, you know, decided to bind my stuff. But yeah, there's obviously a lot more ways you can bind stuff. You know, some people even like having stuff under F keys, you know, F1, F2, F3, F4. These are also okay for some like not really needed spells like buffs, for example, mounts, foods, things like that. Also, for example, something I always do is I keep my either druid forms, auras, stances on control 1, 2, 3, 4. That is something I just keep there. And I think I also control pet abilities the exact same way with those keybinds. So that's just kind of how I, you know, like to bind my stuff. But, you know, the way I do it is obviously not the most optimal, and there are much better ways out there. You know, if you look at how streamers set up their keys, but at the end of the day, what matters most is what you find comfortable. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you learned something new. Good luck with your keybinds. If you have any really cool and kind of quirky ways of keybinding, do let me know. I would like to hear that in the comments below, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out.